Hello, good morning, and welcome to Shree's Sunday New York Times Read Along. Special shout out to everyone watching on replay. If you're watching this, if you're getting this opening, you're most likely watching on replay. Thank you so much for joining us. Our guest today is Liza Donnelly, visual journalist and writer, and an award winning New Yorker cartoonist. Our host, of course, is Shree Srinivasan, the Marshall Loeb Professor at the Stony Brook School of Journalism and co-founder of Digimentors, a digital and virtual events consultancy. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're also live on Liza Donnelly's Facebook page and her profile. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, make sure you click on the actual video so that if you leave a comment, we can see it on the screen. And now, without further ado, we'll go to our Upper West Side cam, courtesy of Shree Srinivasan. Shree, good morning. Looks like a beautiful day out there.
It is beautiful. You're looking at the Upper West Side, and in the distance, Midtown Manhattan, and all the way in the distance, the New World Trade Center. There's the Hudson River and New Jersey. It's beautiful. And down here, you can see a little bit of the streets of New York. On a Sunday morning, it's always quiet, but obviously during the pandemic, a little quieter than usual. And in the distance there, you can see Central Park as well. It's a little windy here today. We have a lot of construction during the week. So when I'm on the air during the week, during the day, it gets a little noisy from that building coming up.
Absolutely. So we have several people who are watching us already, who have already checked in. Jonathan Borstein, hello from the East Village. Apparently there's a demonstration is planned at Union Square later today. Laura Silverman is joining us from Philadelphia. Sachdev Ramakrishna is watching from on LinkedIn. We have Apollo up early today in Las Vegas. Apollo, thank you as always for joining us. Hi, Mom. My mom is joining from Hastings-on-Hudson. Always great to see her here. And our guest, Liza Donnelly, is with us and excited to join us. So there she is. And of course, Shree is turning the camera back on himself. And who else? We have Shree, one more hello for you. Your mom joining us early.
Hi, Amma. Hi, Amma. So hello to both moms, Neil's mom and mine. And to everyone watching, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of this show for 5 years. Please tag your friends right now. They can watch this later. If they can't join us right now, just hit share or tag anyone who's interested in the news. We've been doing this show in October. It'll be 5 years. And we have learned so much doing this. And we have a wonderful community, thousands of people who watch every week.
We also have Deborah Kerr joining us from Asheville, North Carolina, presumably. Our friend Stephen Kaplan joining from Ramsey, New Jersey. Hey, Stephen. And we also have a user from Johannesburg coming in through LinkedIn. Unfortunately, we didn't get the name and the face, but I'm assuming that's our digital doodler friend, right, Shree? Is that?
I think it's Colin, maybe watching.
Colin Horner?
Yeah. So great to have everybody here. We're going to learn so much as we do on this show. And Liza is a dear friend. She and I have traveled in different places, working together and learning together. Let's see who else is watching. What are the other comments? Patricia's watching from Catawba Island in Ohio. I'm looking, so I have two cameras today. So I'm looking over on this side here. Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for tagging your friends. We're going to be talking about the newspaper, of course, the New York Times. This started as an opportunity to test out Facebook Live and learn more about Facebook Live, but it's also an opportunity for us to talk about the newspaper and talk about information and news and all that good stuff, and also entertainment. There's always great stuff going on in the paper, and Liza's presence here with us is awesome. Joining from the first time, love the vibe, South Africa. AK Ahmed is here. Thank you.
So that might have been our guest from South Africa, who we couldn't see their name and face, Shree. So that's good to know. And we have a guest joining from Martha's Vineyard as well.
Hi, Basia. That's great. Let's see who else. Our own team members are here too.
Absolutely. So I want to take a moment to give a shout out to our team. We wouldn't be able to produce the New York Times Read Along without a great team. Of course, Shri is the host, and I'm the executive producer and occasional guest host. But our production team includes Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Julia Weeks, and Carla Baranakis. You can follow Paula Kiger at Big Green Pen. Steve Taylor is at Steve DeReeve, Julia Weeks at Julia L. Weeks, and Carla Baranakis at Kabara. Today, Julia Weeks is actually watching in Shri's Facebook page. She'll be sharing links and engaging with the audience. Steve Taylor is in LinkedIn. Carla is going to keep an eye on Liza Donnelly's pages for folks that are joining there. One of the things that we do that makes this the read along special is that we have people engaging with the audience, sharing links to articles, providing context, etc. So thank you for helping us pull this together. And a special shout out to our friend Paula Kiger. She's taking the week off. She's spending some time with family, and I know that our thoughts and prayers are with her as they deal with some serious illness in her family. But Paula, thank you so much, and know that we're thinking about you. Shri, we also want to give a shout out to our sponsors. So why don't we start off with Muckrack?
Big thanks to Muckrack Academy for helping me put together Fundamentals of Social Media, a free course that everyone can take. You get a certificate at the end of it. I learned so much putting this together with our team, Linda Bernstein, Stefan Kaplan, Shirsti Heber, and with our friends at Muckrack. So please sign up for this. You will learn a lot, and send this to someone who you know wants to learn more about social media.
Thank you, Shri. And in addition to Muckrack, we also want to recognize Strategy Focus Group, who is another one of our sponsors. So Strategy Focus Group is a global team of human capital strategists committed to helping organizations solve people issues within your organization. They do that by working alongside you to solve your toughest problems and helping you capture your greatest opportunities. You can see, if you're interested in being a sponsor, you can contact Shri at shri.net, or myself, Neil at neilparekh.org. And we also encourage you to learn more about our sponsors. You can follow these links, readalong.link/muckrack and readalong.link/strategy focus group. Again, thank you very much, Greg Gallant and Mike Schneider from Muckrack, and Ron Thomas, a previous guest, and always joins us whatever time for strategy with Strategy Focus Group. So thank you for your support. And with that, Shri, we will go into taking a look at the paper. And you want to take a broad view first, and then we'll bring in our guest, Liza Donnelly.
Works well. So we'll see you soon, Neil. Thank you. And big thanks to our sponsors, of course. If you'd like to sponsor, please let us know. We'd love to have you join us. All right, let's take a look at the paper. We have obviously multiple sections. Today, we have the at-home section that has been around for about 5 months now. The cover of Sunday Business is Doing God's Work. Divinity consultants are on a mission to usher in soul-centered corporate rituals. Kiki Palmer will take you there is the cover of Sunday Styles. The movie star, talk show host, and self-described drama nerd person is hosting the VMAs, the Video Music Awards. And Sunday Review, the cover is The Mind Readers' Brains Are Talking to Computers and Computers to Brains. Are our daydreams safe? And let's see here. The book review is The Good War, World War II at 75. And here is the New York Times Magazine, Good Work by Jenna Wortham. George Floyd's killing galvanized a nation, but it took a new wave of young Black activists to channel that energy into a movement for political change. So many things going on. The cover of the kids section, Speak Up. And the kids section comes out about once a month. And Walking the American Dream is the arts and leisure cover. And this is Michael Kimmelman, the architecture critic, walking through Jackson Heights. And in this case, I believe he's walking through Jackson Heights with our friend Suketu Mehta, who is an amazing writer and knows New York City so well. And the real estate cover is Parents Create Learning Pods. Back to school may mean repurposed living rooms, cleaned out barns, and even tree houses. And I've certainly seen that even on our floor. There's a family doing that. And finally, the Times Style magazine. So there's a style section, and the Times Style magazine, I think it's once a quarter, is called T. And the issue is The Time Is Now, Nothing is Certain, Change is Here, Fearless Fashion for a New Reality is the cover. Let's just glance at the front page of the New York Times, and then we'll bring Liza in. Folks, stay tuned to meet Liza Donnelly, cartoonist, writer, and just all-around great person. You're going to enjoy our time together. For the uninsured, relief program is falling short. COVID-19 bills piling up. Murky rules, backlogs, and mistakes add to patients' anxiety. The untold story of Breonna Taylor. Her life was changing. Then the police came to her door, and we know that she was shot dead in her own room. And interesting to see this byline. It's by Rukmini Callimachi, who is best known as the Times ISIS correspondent, and she is now writing this story. So I want to hear more about that. Party stretch to link Trump with diversity. Intense drive to recast image at convention. Many of us saw the naturally occurring rainbow of people that they forced into the convention setting. Fleeing the city creates frenzy in the suburbs, and we've been hearing about that. Those of us who haven't left the city are watching in amusement as all of that's going on. Colleges yearning to reopen become labs for COVID safety, and there's so much going on there with that issue of going back to school or not. And then finally on the front page obit for a 43-year-old actor. You don't normally see that, but Chadwick Boseman was no ordinary 43-year-old actor, somebody who played some of the most memorable and important roles of the last few years, including Jackie Robinson, as well as Thurgood Marshall and King T'Challa in the Black Panther. And Wesley Morris's obit of Chadwick Boseman, infusing lightness into the dignity of kings. A beautiful appreciation here by Wesley Morris. All right, let's bring on Liza Donnelly. If she's ready to join us, we'd love to start our chat with her. And here she is. Good morning, Liza.
Hi, Sri. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Great to have you here. And I'm going to just come on camera so I can say hello to you as well. How are you doing, Liza? It's great to see you here. This is your third visit with the New York Times Read Along in 5 years. We are so glad to have you with us. As you can see, the operation has become a lot more serious since the time when we were just kind of fooling around with it back in the day.
Yeah, when we first did it, you were visiting in the Hudson Valley, and I just drove over to where you were, and we sat in the yard, and your dog Tara was there, and it was very informal, but both are really fun.
Yeah, and it's great. And look, Twyla says, love Liza and her active engagement, which is great. Let's see some more comments coming in from folks. I truly enjoy your shows. Best content and guests. Thank you very much. And Liza is easily available on all social platforms. She's at Liza Donnelly on Twitter. And also her website is lizadonnelly.com. Let's folks keep posting your comments and we'll read them throughout the show. Liza, my first question to our guests on this show, as well as our daily program that we do, is how are you? Where are you? How's your family doing through the pandemic?
Oh, thanks, Bree. I'm very well. Everybody's well. No one has been sick in our family. I feel very, very lucky. I'm in the Hudson Valley, which is a beautiful part of the world. I split my time between the Hudson Valley and New York. I've been back to New York since March a few times since the pandemic began. But we're all well. Thank you, Sri. How are you guys?
Thanks for asking. We're just getting ready for school in a couple of weeks here with my kids, and trying to stay alive in New York. You know, we want to make sure we're not complacent now that we made it through the first 175 days. We don't want to go, backslide as a lot of other places have, including California.
Yeah, I watch when I ride the train, either the subway or Amtrak. I'm hyper aware of who's got a mask on, who doesn't, and it's kind of interesting to watch.
And it's been so nice to see that lots of people in Manhattan wearing masks.
True.
In our neighborhood, it feels like it's about 95% mask wearing, and that's great. Ellen says Liza is the best, so I like that.
Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, New York.
Laura said,
New Yorkers are real team players, I think, for the most part. They really know how to, because we have to get along in such close quarters. We get it. So.
Laura says, I applaud Liza for her live drawing of the conventions. Tough stuff. And in fact, that she's just finished doing both the DNC and the RNC convention. So it's great to have her here. And Therese says, bonjour from Yonkers. Not too far from where you are, at least closer to you than to me.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. It's like equidistant.
Yes, that's probably right. So let's look at the paper and get just your quick sense. You saw me kind of show everybody what the paper looks like today, the range of sections. What is your thoughts about the print publication? Obviously, you're a New Yorker cartoonist, so you have a special affinity for print publications. You've written so many books. Talk about what it means to see the newspaper arrayed like this in front of you.
Oh, I love it. We still get the print edition here 7 days a week. And I read it a little bit. I tend to read it more online, but I love print. I grew up on print, and I started publishing in print. So it's, I use both. Try to use both if I can. And something nice about the tactile nature of the paper. And when you go through the paper, one of the things I like to do when I work on ideas, I don't do it now as much as I used to, but I just get the paper, the physical paper, and sit at my desk with a big piece of paper and the New York Times, and I just leaf through it and browse. And you never know what you're going to run into when you do it that way. If you're looking at the paper online, the New York Times online, it's a little more like driven by what you want to read. What you're going for. But when you're just sitting with the paper, casually looking at it or leafing through it, you read things that you might not have read otherwise. So that's why I like print. That's
great to get that perspective. And you heard me read some of these stories on the front page. Any thoughts about any of them?
Yeah, well, Breonna Taylor is so heartbreaking. I've been following her, the people who are trying to get justice for her, watching people promote her story and her death and trying to it's just heartbreaking. And I drew her right after she first was killed. I was live drawing a lot of different things on my desk here with paper and pen, actually. And she was one of the people that I drew. I drew George Floyd. I drew Breonna Taylor. I drew, I can't remember all the names, sadly, right now. But yeah, so, and then Chadwick. We lost him too early. What an amazing actor.
You're so right. By the way, you're looking at my newsletter, which went out about half an hour ago. If you have it in your inbox, please do open it. Please share it. And because we were advertising your appearance on our show today, I used your Twitter image, your Twitter header, which is Black Lives Matter. And it's such a beautiful drawing. And folks, you can find this srinet.substack.com, srinet.substack.com. Hope you'll all subscribe to my newsletter. We cover lots of important issues, including talking about Facebook itself. I am a fan of Facebook, the platform, of what it can do. But I take them to task in this particular episode, this particular issue, because they're saying we'll do better every time is not enough. And so we go out, we lay out the case of what Facebook needs to improve and needs to work on. And I know you are a Facebook user. We have so many friends who have stopped using Facebook because they're so upset about what it's doing.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I'm on the same page as you are. But I also have so many international cartoonist friends on Facebook that it's a link for me to many of them and what they're doing. So I still want to be on Facebook and watch their work. Mm-hmm.
And that's right. I can't leave Facebook. I think the gravitational pull is too big, but it needs to get better and do better. One of our suggestions, in the newsletter, is that what Facebook needs are editors, and there are thousands of unemployed journalists right now who could help the platform get better tomorrow. And that's that's the call we make in the newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
Tell us what we're looking at here. Look at this.
Yeah, one thing that I've been doing more of, the live drawing. This is Chadwick Boseman that I drew yesterday after hearing about his death. And this is done on my iPad. One thing that I've been doing more and more of since the pandemic is drawing, like I just mentioned, Breonna Taylor and other people that are in the news that have passed away or been killed. And it's just a way for me to honor them, to draw attention to them. Not that Chadwick needed my attention, my drawing. He doesn't. He got so much love yesterday and continues to. But maybe for people that aren't paying attention to the Breonna Taylors of the world, I like to draw her. And as I draw these people, I think about them. It's something that I've done since I was a teenager. When I draw somebody or an animal, perhaps or a portrait of somebody, I'm studying their face and I'm thinking about them. So it's a way for me to honor them. And then I put it out on social media, and hopefully somebody who didn't hear about Breonna Taylor might go like, "Who's that?" and follow the link. So it's a way to draw attention to an issue.
I love that you do it. Thank you, and a beautiful image there as well. I'm just looking at your room behind you. Tell us where you are. Is this where all the magic happens?
This is this is my studio. I've been here since 1988, 87. This is an old building in the Hudson Valley. This is a great story behind this building. About this room is when we moved here. My husband and I, our house is across the street. It's a small street, but this was a structure. Downstairs was a post office and a general store. It's now storage for us. And this room was we were told by this old man who used to deliver wood to us, a dance hall and a boxing place to do boxing. That's what he said. So it's now my studio. And the books behind me are all books from my career over there are even college books back there. So.
Well, I'm going to just show everybody one of your books. I have it right here, Cartoon Marriage, Adventures in Love and Matrimony by the New Yorker's cartooning couple, Liza Donnelly and Michael Maslin. Tell us about this book.
Michael Maslin is my husband, obviously, and we got married in 88, right after we bought this house. And he's also a New Yorker cartoonist. That's how we met, is both being cartoonists for the New Yorker. And we had 2 kids together, and I'm trying to think how to talk about this book quickly. This is about 10 years old, I believe, this book, and we knew that we were going to have to do a book like this because there are not that many married New Yorker cartoonists. I think there was one in the 30s and 40s, Mary Petty and Alan Dunn, and then us, and then more recently 2 other couples. So it's a unique pairing. Actually, it's a very fun. It's fun to be married to somebody in the business because it's such a hard business, Sri, that you need somebody to commiserate with and share humor. Although we don't share our work that much, we did this together because we knew that we had tons and like hundreds of cartoons about marriage, each of us, not our marriage necessarily, but just marriage in general, because it's a great subject for cartoons. And so we pooled our resources and edited it out and had help from the editor and have cartoons about marriage in general in there. And then each chapter has a graphic narrative at the beginning that we drew together. So, and we didn't.
I like this cartoon. I don't get it, Molly. What's he got that I don't have? and it's the same guy basically.
Yeah.
And my lover will kill me if she finds out I'm sleeping with my wife. These are. I just happened to come to this section. It seems to be all the affairs are happening in on a few pages.
About children.
And this is about kids.
Yeah.
That'll look good on his college application. This captures kind of the parental angst about college and things like that. And what was it like raising two daughters in that part of New York?
Oh, it's such a kind of idyllic, this being in the country with raising kids here. It's wonderful. We chose not to raise them in the city. It's too expensive for two cartoonists to raise kids in the city. Anyway, so we moved up here. When we moved up here, it was a lot less expensive than it is now. But yeah, we drew with them a lot. You know, we'd lie on the floor with these big pads of paper and draw, and they draw and we draw. And they're both good artists. They're not in the art world, but they're both good artists.
Nice. And I just wanted to show Michael's work as well. This is Michael, and folks will definitely recognize his style as well. I don't have my homework, Miss Flynn. My parents forgot to do it.
Yeah, right.
And that's just one of, how many books do you have? Do you even remember the full count?
17.
17 books. That is awesome.
Some of them are children's books, but they're books.
Yeah, they certainly are. And it's just so great to hear you talk about them. Lots of comments coming in, and please keep sharing and posting your comments as well as we talk about the news. So we're just going to keep going here, and then we'll talk about Liza's career and how she ended up becoming a cartoonist in just a bit. We're just going past the front page, letting kids do the talking on race, the Inside the Time section. And then on this day in history, in 1965, 2 astronauts end 8-day flight tired but in wonderful shape. Gordon Cooper Jr. and Charles P. Conrad plunged out of darkness into sunrise after 120 orbits of Earth, the Times reported. That's beautiful writing there. From Here to Help, from the home team, in praise of a simple routine. So are you a person of strong routines?
Yes, I am. Yep. You got to be when you're freelance. You have to keep a routine going. Who did that drawing, Sri? Can you see the
Angie Wang.
That's nice.
Yeah, sketchbook. So this is, I guess, little drawings that they have here. And on the set of The Apprentice, when Donald Trump would berate crew members for a mistake, one producer recalls that Donald Trump Jr., speaking from experience, would console them, "It's not your fault, it's your turn." And this is about the next Trump from the Times Magazine, which we may or may not get to in depth. Tracking the outbreak. What has been the outbreak situation in your part of New York?
You know, I don't know the numbers, but it was we had a fair number of cases here in Hudson Valley, because it is we have a I think it's spillage from New York. You know, so people left the city to come up here, as I did. But I also live here. But I think people are coming up here. I think people are leaving the city. Have you heard that, Spree, that people are leaving for good, or they say they're leaving the city for good? Did you read Jerry Seinfeld's wonderful piece about New York?
I heard about it. I'm a big Seinfeld fan, but I did not read that story yet. So I want to hear about that. And then here's a front page story in the New York Times. Fleeing the city creates frenzy in the suburbs, I believe. Prices are going up on houses. And there's also people don't like having all these New Yorkers around permanently.
No, well.
Let's see. Uncertainty and hope swell as students return to class. TikTok stars facing charges after hosting house parties. Betsy Bush says, "So nice to see Liza Donnelly in our studio. I'm a huge fan. And by the way, I love the idea that there used to be dancing taking place behind you."
Me too. Because I love to dance. I've never danced in this space, though. I have to say, maybe I should.
And we've never been dancing, even though you and I have been together in Pittsburgh, in New York, in the Hudson Valley, and in Dubai. So that's an unusual combination. I'm sure none of your friends have been with you in all 4 of those places.
Nope, I can be sure of that.
Here's a question. You're positive, but are you contagious? Here's a story. Tests may be too sensitive, experts say. So you can be positive without being contagious. That's one of the things that, of course, people talk about. Multiple families with children are fleeing my sister-in-law's apartment building in Park Slope. We're certainly seeing that in New York as well, in the rest of New York as well. When Belarusians hit a breaking point and rose up, and Putin is working on bringing that to an end. Beijing complicates sale of TikTok. And here's something interesting. In the failing New York Times, an ad for a paid obituary for Robert Stewart Trump, the brother of President Trump. And this has been inserted in here. And
listening to Mary Trump's book, it's fascinating.
Yeah, she has the book, and now she has the secret recordings of the sister, who's a former judge. 9 years later, FBI agent who protested torture gets to tell entire story in memoir. New details add to history of early post 9/11 fight against Al Qaeda. That all seems like a century ago. It was only 15, 20 years, less than 20 years ago now. But all of that seems so long ago. Documentary in a Balkan Hamlet may need a sequel. I'm not sure. I've not read that story yet. Berlin police halt march against virus restrictions. 18,000. So I've been saying that only Americans are protesting all of the virus restrictions, but here is Berlin, 18,000 people marching. And I thought the Europeans were all cooperating, but obviously not everybody. But included in here were some very right-wing folks, and neo-Nazis, and all were also in these marches. In Louisiana, a storm that won't blow over. Outrage over a police shooting has only deepened in Lafayette as other crises divert the nation's attention. And this is, of course, more protests in the wake of George Floyd's killing. Still bearing scars from economic trauma, city, a wounded place again. And this is about Kenosha, Wisconsin. And tomorrow night, on Monday night at 9 p.m., our friend Bob Anthony, who works with us at DigiMentors, our consulting business, he is going to host with me on my daily program a conversation about Kenosha and what's happening in and around there. He was a reporter in Milwaukee and in Kenosha, so he'll have, and Racine, so lots to share about Wisconsin. So please tune in 9 p.m. Eastern on my social media channels with Bob Anthony. Renee Edelman says, I'm watching from Long Island. Hi, Renee. Renee has been a guest on this show and a great supporter of our daily program as well. So thank you so much, Renee, for being here. Here's the untold story of Breonna Taylor, Rukmini Callimachi's big takeout story in the New York Times. I've not had a chance to read this yet. I'm sure our producers will put links to this in the various platforms so that everyone can read what started on the front page and continues inside in this deeply reported story. And here's, in fact, so it's 2 full pages, 3 full pages plus the front page. And here is a projection of Miss Taylor's image on Confederate Robert E. Lee, the statue of Robert E. Lee. Since her death, she's become a symbol of racial injustice. Okay, so tell us about live drawing the DNC and the RNC. Which was easier to draw? Which was what was it like to live draw these very important events?
Well, you know this, Sri, that I was live on location 4 years ago in Philadelphia for the DNC, and that's the beginning of my visual journalism thing that I do. And I was there live drawing behind the scenes, the speakers, the journalists, the vendors, the trash collectors. So it was a thrill because I've always watched, as long as I can remember, I've watched the conventions. I feel like it's so iconic. It's a very American thing, and it's part of our process, a democratic process. So I love it. I love the kitsch and the feeling of it. So I tried to get there this year before the pandemic hit. I was having a little trouble, but anyway, couldn't go this year. Nobody went, obviously. So I sat in front of my TV and live drew it, and I knew that I was going to draw the DNC, and I told myself I really have to draw the RNC. I am a Democrat. I'm a supporter of Biden and Harris, so I'll put that out there. But I knew that I needed to see the RNC as well, and I needed to draw it just for balance. Which was easier. Perhaps the DNC was easier for me because it was less stressful to listen to, it was more hopeful for me. And it was interesting to draw the RNC, and that was one of his last things he said, Trump, and I was just appalled at how he was using the White House for political purposes. It just makes my skin crawl. But it was hard to know, and these are some of the Democratic ones. I try to capture quotes. I listen as I draw, and I try to pull out a quote. I've learned how to do it better over the years in that I know the cadence of a speech, so I know sort of when the quote's going to come that's sort of encapsulating what the person is talking about. Let's see. Yeah, so there, Biden talked a lot about light and darkness in his speech, and I pulled that directly from his mouth. So it was harder with the RNC because it was more difficult to listen to, and both of these were they're promotional tools for the party and for the candidate, of course. But I felt that I guess it's my bias as well. I did feel that the RNC was much more propaganda than the DNC, so it was harder to draw for me because I don't want to promote anybody's propaganda, but trying to get a sense of what's going on.
And wow, look at that output. It's hard enough to get the quotes right. How do you get the quotes right and do the drawing at the same time? That is fascinating.
Well, sometimes I miss quotes, but thank you. What else can I say?
Why don't you stop? Let's stop at a couple of these and take a look.
Yeah, this is the opening segment. This is is he a cardinal? Cardinal Dolan. Is he a cardinal, Sri? I don't know. I don't know my Catholic.
The Cardinal Dolan, yeah.
Dolan, yeah. He opened the RNC, and every night of the RNC was a different religious person opening the session. This woman, Kimberly
Guilfoyle, who just screamed. Who just kept screaming? Yeah, it was.
There were a lot of memes after that on Twitter. That's Donald Trump's girlfriend.
Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. I try not to caricature, but if you look at Tiffany Trump, I couldn't help myself. She had so much eye makeup on, it was over the top, so I just had to do that. But I try not to do caricatures.
Somebody on Twitter was confused and called her his stepdaughter because they thought that we don't see her much, but she is in fact Donald Trump's daughter.
Marla Maples, I forget.
From Marla Maples, yes. Twyla says repulsion at Trump using White House as an endorsement for him, going against the Hatch Act and so many other violations, but it doesn't matter anymore. No one's there to hold him accountable for these things.
He just does stuff, and nobody. He does outrageous things, and people don't call him on it, or they call him on it, and then that's that. It goes away.
But not the right people are not calling him on it, so it doesn't matter. Tell us. Oh, there's Rudy Giuliani. Tell us the difference between caricature and cartooning. You said you try not to caricature.
Well, in this case, in this situation, I just try to draw what I see. I may push it a little over the top, like some of the people. Rudy, that's really not a caricature. That's kind of him, right? That's what he looks like in my eyes. I do political cartoons, Sri. different than this, where I caricature Trump. So I have done that, but not in the live drawing. I, for the most part, try to keep it basically getting the essence of the person. That's a bit of a caricature, but and she didn't say that. So I sometimes take my liberties as an editorial cartoonist to say something.
And here is
The
which
flag.
groups.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
All the
Yeah,
flags.
so many flags. That's right. They just wrap themselves in their flags.
Yeah.
And in our flags, I should say. Okay, here I'm just looking at the paper right now. They've shown us what the convention looked like, which groups dominated the convention: the Trumposphere, the Trump clan, non-politicians, and the party's future. And there's certainly more women and a slight amount of diversity here. One of the things that people are talking about is whether in 2024 Nikki Haley would run against either Vice President Kamala Harris or Senator Harris if she doesn't win this time as a vice president. And that would be an interesting story. Two children of two immigrants, two sets of immigrants, and both of them part South Asian. She's fully South Asian, Nikki Haley, and Kamala is half South Asian, half Black. Patricia says, it seems diplomatic, great work, and authentic portrayal. So you're getting a thumbs up there.
Thank you. Sri, how is the South Asian community responding to Kamala Harris's pick?
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on that most people who are not South Asian wouldn't know. The folks who understand the historic nature of this are excited, and there are lots of young South Asians who understand the symbolism and the importance of having a South Asian pick like this. There are some progressives who are calling her out for some of her stands during, as a prosecutor, but she's obviously evolved on a lot of those stands. But the more interesting thing is how the right wing in the U.S. is targeting older South Asians and pointing out problems, what they consider problems with her candidacy in terms of what she may have said that official India doesn't like during her time as a senator. And that is all kind of just to muddy the waters. South Asians voted 80% plus for the Clinton Kane ticket back in 2016. So I believe after African Americans, South Asians are among the most loyal Democrats. And so having a South Asian there is going to help. But they are picking away using WhatsApp and other tools and sharing memes and other things that raise questions about how South Asian she is. And this is, of course, one of the problems that Kamala Harris faces, that to some progressives, she is not progressive enough, while on Fox every day she's portrayed as a communist. So the same person can't be both. And that's where you've heard this line, Liza, that I love. They say that Republicans are unapologetic. Once they have a candidate, they're all in. There is no breach in the support, whereas Democrats are unforgiving. And so Republicans are unapologetic and Democrats are unforgiving. And so people are constantly apologizing and making confusing matters instead of going all in as they could be and should be.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I've heard that.
And Sujana says, excellent summation of our diaspora's response to Harris. And then you mix in the Russians, you mix in WhatsApp and these other technologies which allow easy sharing and are huge in the South Asian community, and the love that Trump has for Modi and vice versa. All of that gets injected into this, and it's a big mess.
It's a big mess. It's a big mess all around.
Yeah. Biden addressing National Guard counters GOP convention claims. Chadwick Boseman, this is the official obituary that we read. What we saw on the front page of the New York Times by Wesley Morris is what's called an appraisal. So this is more fact-based, whereas the other is more kind of opinion. And Walter Lure, 71, a pioneer of punk rock, is dead. He was in London with the rest of the Heartbreakers. I presume this is a different band, the Heartbreakers, than Joan Jett and the Heartbreakers. Oh, wait, sorry, not Joan Jett and the Heartbreakers. Remind me, the Heartbreakers. Somebody will get that right. Twyla says we eat our own.
So Tom
Petty and the Heartbreakers, of course. Sorry, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, right? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember that.
The WNBA veteran extends her influence on and off the court. So this is the sports section about Angel McCoughtry. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. And that tells you something that we don't hear enough about the WNBA in this country. After kickstarting a movement, the Bucks play some ball. And this is about the boycott that happened right after.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to do a call out for ESPNW. I live draw their summit every year. ESPNW is the women's network for ESPN, and it's a great organization started by Laura Gentile, who's a powerful force inside ESPN for women. So it's a great, if you like women's sports, that go there.
I recommend it strongly as well. My wife Rupa was at the very first gathering. She is a member of India Sports Hall of Fame for her rifle shooting, and so she was on the advisory board when this was born, and had a great time. You might have been there together that first time too.
Well, Laura invites me back every year. This year she had me digitally live draw their summit in New York. That was really great. But I've met her. What's her name again? I forgot her name all of a sudden.
Rupa. Yeah.
No, not Rupa. The woman you're just showing on the screen.
Oh, sorry. We'd have to go up and.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Let's see here. The end of an era for both Messi and Barcelona. For those of you following soccer, this is huge news. And also Neymar left Nike, which was also breaking news alert. Djokovic leads breakaway effort to represent top men's tennis players. So the union activity going on. And here's a full page obituary paid for by the Heinz Company. I'm not sure. This is not obviously the HEINZ. This is HINES and Gerald Heinz, and a photo by Annie Leibovitz, no less.
Huh.
I'm not sure. It's a company with 4,800 employees, it says. All right, which section would you like to go to next?
Oh, the book section, perhaps?
Yes. Author of 17 books gets to go to the book section. And here's a cartoon on the front page, World War II at 75. Mm-hmm. And here is, we were just talking about Kamala Harris, and here's Nikki Grimes and her book about Kamala Harris, Rooted in Justice. And Nikki was a guest on my daily program. Oh. Folks, if you haven't watched it yet, please join us every single day as we cover various aspects of the COVID-19 crisis. And tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll have a show as well where we talk about positivity, and we'd love for you to join us. So 9 p.m. on all my social media channels. Let's see here, lots of ads here. Jill Lepore, the historian whose new book is If Then, reads a lot for her Harvard classes. Reading for teaching is a little like eating a meal and trying afterward to write up a recipe for every dish. That is not easy to do for sure. And here's also an illustration. I'm sure you're always happy to see more drawings in the New York Times.
Yeah. I did some illustration for them early in my career for a food section. And then more recently, I've written and drawn for the opinion page.
We love that. And we just passed the anniversary of America dropping the atomic bomb. And this book is called called Unconditional: The Japanese Surrender in World War II by Mark Galicchio. And more about Hiroshima fallout, the Hiroshima cover-up, and the reporter who revealed it to the world. A journalist stands near the shell of a building in Hiroshima in 1965. I was born in Tokyo, so I feel a connection to this story. The person we had on the cover was Sage Marie Steele, an American television anchor who's the co-host of the 6 p.m. Sports Center at ESPN, and she was on that ESPNW Summit page, and she hosts that with Kevin Nagandi, our friend who is also an anchor there. Poland 1939, The Outbreak of World War II by Roger Moorehouse. So many books about World War II because, of course, the 75th anniversary. And this book is The Last Mission to Tokyo, the extraordinary story of the Doolittle Raiders and their final fight for justice. And some of you saw, I can't remember which movie it was, but that had Alec Baldwin playing Doolittle. And just last night, Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle. And just last night, my kids who have recently started watching 30 Rock, we were watching a much older Alec Baldwin on 30 Rock. What are your TV habits, by the way?
My husband and I stream shows, series. That's the word I was looking for. We like, I don't know, the Americans. We like British shows that are about crime, and we watch movies every now and then. So, really don't watch regular TV hardly ever. Maybe CNN is a big on a lot in our house. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. So many different books about World War II here.
You mentioned World War II, Sri. My uncle was killed in Germany in 1944. He was 19 years old, and he's buried in the Netherlands. There's an American cemetery there, and I've been a couple times now to see his grave, and it's so moving. These cemeteries in Europe for Americans who were killed in the war are quite powerful places if you've ever been. And they have a one. I was going to go this year again, but of course I couldn't because they were going to have a huge celebration of the 75th anniversary.
Normandy's on my list of places to go. I didn't know there were other cemeteries, including in the Netherlands, so I will definitely look that up.
There's one in the Netherlands, and what's interesting, I think most of them do this now, but the one is called Margraten Cemetery. The citizens adopt the grave, so there's a local family that adopts each grave, and I got to meet the woman who adopted my uncle's grave, and it's just a wonderful connection. I wrote about it and drew about it when I first went.
Thank you. We're just looking at the bestseller list to see if you've read any of these books. The fiction, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, Choppy Water by Stuart Woods, The Midlife Murders by James Patterson, A Private Cathedral, James Lee Burke, and The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Nonfiction, Live Free or Die by Sean Hannity, Too Much and Never Enough by Mary Trump, Finding Freedom by Umid Scobie, Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, and Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I definitely want to read some of these books, but certainly not all of those books. And here is, at the height of the war, the book review delivered a blistering takedown of Mein Kampf. So this is how this Gal Beckerman, a former student of mine, is looking at the New York Times review of Mein Kampf. The review is by William Schlamm.
I love that graphic.
Yeah, and here's a drawing, Hitler in Soviet Russia by Sermansky. We had some questions coming in earlier for Liza. Let's see if we can bring them up, including whether you knew Gail Sheehy.
No, did not.
And this is a question from Twyla. As other questions come in, we'll put them on the screen as well. We have about, let's see, 25, 30 minutes left with Liza. We want to talk a little bit about the Times Magazine. Look at this very striking cover here, groundwork by Jenna Wortham, about young activists who channeled the energy and made it into a movement for political change. And we'll see if we can show various aspects of the magazine. Does a really good job online of telling the story of the cover. So when we have a chance, if we have a chance, we'll pull that up, but we'll just go into the magazine. And here it is. So let's pull that up and play for you. It'll also give Liza a chance to take a break and just relax for a minute. We'll play the story of behind the cover.
I wanted to photograph Candace, Miski, and Oluchi in a way that was reflective of the important work that they do.
From the New York Times Magazine, this is Behind the Cover.
This week, our cover story by Jenna Wortham is about Black Visions, an organizing group from Minneapolis that has had a big influence on progressive change in policing in that city and the Black Lives Matter movement nationwide, especially in the months following George Floyd's killing.
Our photo department wanted to work with D'Angelo Lavelle Williams, a New York City-based photographer who is very interested in discussing Black and queer identity in his work and also makes very intimate portraits.
It seemed obvious to us that the right cover for this story would show three of the individuals who founded Black Visions: Candace Montgomery, Miski Noor, and Oluchi Omioga.
Figuring out a way to get multiple people on the cover and also make a graphic, compelling image can be a challenge. But D'Angelo had a number of ideas. He sent a lot of reference material. Some were photographs, some were even
I just want to check, are you getting the audio on
The
this?
sense of support between them was visually represented so well in this image. It's a simple but powerful pose.
We tried a number of options where we put type over the image, but we decided to move the type to the sides, which foregrounded the body language.
There's been so much attention paid to the protest movement over the past few months, but often not enough attention on the nitty-gritty work that goes into organizing. What is the groundwork that had to be laid by groups like Black Visions and others around the country for such a powerful response to take root and spread nationwide? And then, of course, most critically, what happens next?
Oh, that was so well done,
Yeah.
and great to see all the work that goes into making a cover. And as you know, Liza, creativity looks easy, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of prep. I mean, when I do my drawings, I try to make them look simple and like they were easy, but usually it's a lot of sketches beforehand, like that cover. A lot of moving of objects and moving of type and moving of content to get the best thing.
Patricia asks, who was Liza's most memorable mentor?
I didn't have a mentor per se. People I looked up to, cartoonists, I looked to their work. There were very few women cartoonists, as you all probably know. When I was starting out in the 70s and 80s, there were just three or four of us at the New Yorker at the time. And in the 60s at the New Yorker, there were no women, but I didn't really need a woman to look up to it. I mean, I would have been great, but I was just looking at cartoons and wanting to be a cartoonist. Gender didn't enter into my thinking at that time. So, I didn't really have a mentor, but I looked at other cartoonists. Their work was my mentor, I suppose. That's a way to put it.
Who are some of the women cartoonists people should look for working today that you admire?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, Roz Chast is a friend of mine. She's in the New Yorker. Many people know her work. She's not political, although she has been every now and then. Ann Telmus is a great political cartoonist. There are very few women doing political cartoons. Of course, that field is changing drastically right before our eyes because of the digital and because the newspapers are dying. So, but Ann is with the Washington Post. Okay, this is on the screen. You'll see the book that I wrote about the women cartoonists of the New Yorker magazine, and on top of that, I put that in there because I'm writing a new edition of the book. The book came out in 2005, I think. Is that right? Is that right? 2005. And there were women cartoonists in the magazine, in the New Yorker, in 1925 when it started. So the New Yorker has been welcoming to women ever since it began in 1925. And it was wonderful to find that out. So I wrote about these women from the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And there were no women, as I mentioned, there were no women in the 60s in the New Yorker. But then they came back in the 70s. It sort of follows the feminist wave. The 70s, there were women in the 20s, and then they went away, and then there were women in the 70s. So this new book is going to be out next year. Very funny, ladies, and I'm going to add all the new women that have been arriving at the magazine since this book came out, and there's been a groundswell of women joining the magazine to draw cartoons. So it's really exciting, and this is a picture of some of us back in 2017, I believe, when I put an exhibit, when I found out that there were more women in one issue of the magazine, there were more women drawing cartoons than men. That was the first time ever in the history of the magazine. My husband actually found that out and told me. So I said, I got to do something about this. So I proposed at the Society of Illustrators, which is a great museum in New York, to do a show, and I did an exhibit. And we had standing room only out the door around the block, people waiting to get into this show and to the panel that we had. And people are excited that there are more women drawing cartoons. It's time we hear more humor from women. So yeah, that's exciting. I'm happy about that.
That is cool, and I hope that there will also continue to be more opportunities for women to draw and diverse women as well. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, we have more diversity at the magazine now too. New editor Emma Allen. She was brought in around 2017. Emma Allen. So we have a woman who's editing the cartoons, and she's doing her best to bring in more women and bring in more diversity on both male and female cartoonists.
Scott Hoskins says, "It's been too long, Liza, since Tin Pan Alley. Many years of inspired and inspiring work. Thank you." And I'm glad your friends are with us. Renee says, "I love your bookshelf. What books do you collect?" I think those are all just copies of her own book, because she has 17 books, so just multiple copies of it. Now, she told us that those include her college books and things behind her. And
they're like my friends, a lot of these books that were really, really important to me growing up as an adult. And there's some kids' books there too, but and there's a lot of books there by women. So there's women comedians and women humorists and women writers. So I don't collect so much anymore, but I do like books about women and humor. I taught it at Vassar for a while, and I collect cartoon books. My husband and I both have a rather sizable collection of cartoon books. So.
Twyla says, "Liza hosted excellent panel with women cartoonists, and there was talk about political situations." Rose says, "This was such a fun event. There was a line out the door and all the way down the block. Thrilled to meet so many amazing cartoonists through Liza Donnelly." Rose is one of the producers of our daily global show. She's at Rose Horowitz 31, and she does the amazing hashtag Women to Follow. And I know Liza is on there and knows a lot of the people on there as well. So that's cool. I'm just going to look here about HAPS TV, HAPPS TV. Tell us what that is. You were kind enough to send me an invite. Because you sent it to me, I joined, but I haven't had time to explore it. So tell us what HAPS TV is.
It's a new startup, and it was begun by Mark Goldman, David Newman, and Drew Shepard, all journalists themselves in various parts of digital broadcasting and TV broadcasting, CNN and Current TV among them. But they started this, and they invited me to join. And it's a live streaming for the most part, although you can post articles. Live streaming platform. So it's a global community. They have cartoonists, not cartoonists. They have journalists around. I'm their only cartoonist, I think. They have journalists around the world live streaming events, perhaps protests or political events, and talking about it. And they asked me to join, and because I had been before I joined HAPS. Let me also say, HAPS is is like Patreon. If you know what Patreon is, it's a platform for supporting artists where you can sponsor an artist, a visual artist usually, and actually music as well, by being a sponsor. This is also a sponsor model where people can sponsor what I'm doing. They can sponsor my content and help me make some money, because it's hard to make money with this live drawing right now, particularly during the COVID. But it's a new form of journalism for me that I've been exploring, this live drawing, and some of the media outlets like what I do and they appreciate it, but the only ones I've really done work for are CBS. I was a resident cartoonist there for a while, and then the New Yorker sent me some places too to live draw. But this is a little different because it's actual video. And during the DNC and the RNC, I did every night around 10 o'clock. I would have the camera of my phone over my hand and draw and talk about what I was drawing. And what you're looking at right now is a drawing I was doing last week, I believe, for HAPS about the fires in California. So not only did I videotape and live draw the RNC and the DNC, before that I would draw in my studio where I'm sitting right now on paper and just do it and talk about the issue, talk about what was going on and why I was drawing what I'm drawing. It's just a way to, like I said before early on about drawing Breonna Taylor, it's a way to draw attention to an issue in a different way. So people tell me they enjoy watching me draw. I think it's just they find it not only interesting but soothing. When the pandemic first started, I love traveling and I love drawing when I travel places, and I couldn't travel, so I'm here in my studio and I thought, what can I do? So I started to tape my drawing over my hand, and I'd done that before years ago, but I thought that's what I'll do now, and I would do it every day. This is before HAPS TV started or approached me. I would draw every day at 5, and I still do it on Instagram TV, and tape what I was drawing and what was going on. And so these are not necessarily cartoons or drawings with ideas. They're more like conversational. So in the beginning of the pandemic, I would just draw and doodle and talk about the pandemic and how it's affecting us. I would draw the healthcare workers, the people, the cashiers. I would draw people in hospitals, just from my imagination, but just draw and share with those who are watching me and respond to their comments. So it's a new kind of sharing, which I know, Sri, you're doing a lot of, a new kind of communication with people and talking about issues through video and, in my case, drawing and talking. So I do Instagram TV every day at 5 if you want to join me. And also HAPS is now every day. We don't have a set time yet, but I'm gonna create a set time for HAPS TV. And also, if I'm traveling, I'll do HAPS TV. I did a video of Times Square, of me drawing Times Square when I first went down after the pandemic. Just drawing and thinking about things that are going on. If there's a protest, I'll go draw that. And we'll set a regular time for my HAPS broadcast. And I'll be having guests as well, like you do, Sri. So it's really, I really enjoy it. Check it out.
Fantastic. HAPS TV, HAPPS TV, and look for Liza there. Carla Zanoni, one of our dear friends, says Liza is amazing. And she certainly is. I love that cartoon that showed you drawing those chickens watching the fires. And one says, I blame climate change. The other says, I blame Donald Trump. And the third says, let's blame both. And I think you captured that well. We have just about 20 minutes left with you, Liza. Thank you for being here. Everybody who's watching, tag your friends right now. What a fun, uplifting morning. A great way to start the day or end the day, depending where you are in the world. And people are commenting from around the world. And so we love seeing those comments on the screen and giving you all a chance to talk to Liza. And Liza mentioned my daily program. Tonight we have a show with Ruth Ratlott. She'll be on at 9 p.m. Eastern time on my social media channels. There she is, she's the CEO of HEAF, and she's a leader and professional speaker on diversity, inclusion, education, and mentoring. On Sunday nights, we try to keep things generally positive despite every rotten thing going on. So please join us 9 p.m. Eastern today. And tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll have a special show on Kenosha, Wisconsin, and what's happening there with our friend Bob Anthony. All right, let's get back to the New York Times Magazine and see what's here. I've got a poem that I'm going to read out loud. I'm going to first apologize because when I read these poems, I've done no prep and I'm just reading them. So this is short enough that we can do this quickly. Ode to the Oranges of Jaffa by Philip Metris. See, I've been mispronouncing the poet's name. For your oval and thick-peeled, easy to remove, for your seedless and tough-skinned and suitable for export, for your juice starts sweet, then runs bitter, for naranj comes from Sanskrit, meaning fruit like elephants, memory the earth you come from, and perfume the whole city when wind pages through your leaves. For by 1845, 38 million shipped to farther shores, then symbol of Arab-Jewish cooperation before the war, then orange engine of the new Israel. For the last Jew to grow them now says, to cut the orchard down would be to cut out my heart. Ode to the Oranges of Jaffa. This is in the New York Times Magazine. You never know what you're going to find in the magazine. And here is, again, you see drawings in the New York Times, and this is the ethicist. And so I'm going to ask you this question. Can I stay with friends? Can I stay friends with someone who voices racist views? We're not going to have a chance to read the answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and what advice you would give to, say, your daughters or your younger friends who might ask a question about this.
Well, I would, if the person persisted with the racist views, I would have a conversation with them, as tough as that is. I've never been in that position, and if they don't change their views, I don't think I could stay friends. I don't know. What about you, Sri?
Yeah, I think this has become more of a problem these days because of the new America.
Yeah.
I think in the 90s and 2000s, no one in my circle would talk like some of the things you're seeing now. But because of social media, because of what's happening in Washington, people feel emboldened and they'll sign their names and post things that you would never see before. And I've at least broken up with one friend who I was so horrified about the terrible things he was saying and posting online. And this is because of the rise of the right, and they feel more comfortable saying things that they wouldn't say before. When we were growing up, Liza, obviously there were plenty of racists around, but not necessarily in our circles. And also you didn't hear so many people's opinions all the time. Now, because of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, people are sharing more opinions more loudly. Things that they may have said quietly to their fellow racist friends are now able to say to the world.
Yeah, it's very stressful right now. In that I'm an optimistic person. I try to be optimistic. I try to greet every person with positivity, but just knowing that there's so many people that have these views. I mean, I guess you could look at it on the one hand that it's a force for change. It's maybe this is what is going to propel us to change. If we can see and hear the racists, we can do more about it. You know what I mean? And
sure.
Before they were hidden, and it was. I'm guilty of this. I thought everything's going in the right direction. You know, we're all fine, but it's clearly not the case. There's a lot of loud but formerly hidden anger and racism and hatred. So.
Carla asks, Liza, how do you so quickly process the topic or event you reimagine for your drawings? Do you have a process you follow, or is it more intuitive?
I guess I do follow a process, but it's somewhat intuitive. Like the 5 o'clock Instagram drawing is often political now. It wasn't always, but so I sort of pay attention to the fact that I have to do this at 5, or I'm going to do this at 5, and it's sort of under my consciousness. And then around 4 o'clock, I start really focusing. And obviously, sometimes there's an obvious event that needs to be paid attention to, like the fires or Breonna Taylor or George Floyd, that I need to draw about that, and I know, or the women's suffrage anniversary recently. So I need to draw about that, but sometimes it's not quite so obvious. But if I sit down right before, like around 4:30, I start to doodle with all those things in my brain. Something usually surfaces, and sometimes it's right before the broadcast. So it's kind of an interesting thing that I don't always know how it's going to come out. And if nothing comes out, then I just doodle, and I talk to my followers. So, and that's interesting too, because some days you just don't have an idea.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left with Liza Donnelly, and then we're going to bring in a doctor to talk to us about the news about Chadwick Boseman's cancer and what we can learn about that. Fola May is a doctor in LA, and she'll be joining us very early for her time to chat with us and talk to us there. So please stay tuned after our conversation with Liza, just right here. We're just going to bring her on, and maybe we'll even get them to say hello to each other. Fola May, MD, PhD, to talk about colon cancer and Chadwick Boseman's death at 43. That'll be at 10 a.m. right on this show. We're just going to roll into that.
Okay.
And then after that, we go from there. I co-executive produce a show called She's on Call, a show about female doctors. And this is a separate show that airs at 11 a.m. Eastern on Facebook. Please follow She's on Call. Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian are the hosts of that show and my co-executive producers. And they will have Monica Gutierrez, who's in rehab medicine, and Dr. Marsha Harris, their expert, who's on colon and rectal surgery. So very timely opportunity to talk about Chadwick in two opportunities. One at 10 o'clock for about 15-20 minutes, and then at 11 o'clock on their own show, She's on Call. So everybody, please stay tuned for those opportunities. I'm looking at the Times food section here in the magazine. Nona-inspired cooking. Maybe you'll find zucchini tian at a restaurant, but it's even better prepared at home. So tell us about your cooking skills.
I'm not a bad cook. I have my repertoire of things that I like to cook. I don't know. I'm tired of cooking right now. I've raised two daughters, and my husband luckily doesn't care what we eat. So it's not so much. It's not a pastime for me. It's something that I need to get done. So
I gather there's no sourdough cooking, bread baking.
No, I did. Yeah, I did. I made some banana bread. I made my daughter, my son-in-law gave me some sourdough starter, and I made it. I didn't do a good job. I used to bake bread when I was in college. Back in the day, that was sort of like a back to the earth kind of time too, in the 70s, where we made our own yogurt and we baked our own bread, and so I have been there, but never made sourdough, and I'm not good at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here is the next Trump in the New York Times Magazine about Donald Trump Jr. And lots to learn here about this guy. He stares at his iPhone all the time. It's locked and loaded. And I think this is an illustration. Yeah. So, Liza, this is just for you. I'm sure that there's so many illustrations. Maybe I'm just noticing how many there are in the magazine this week. Yeah. And they look at the colors in this story that we saw the ad for before, the promo for. Crime, fiction, and online sting operation to capture child sex offenders resulted in the conviction of hundreds of men, even though there were no victims. Huh, interesting. I want to read the story. And what about crossword puzzles? Are you a puzzler?
Just dabble. I just dabble. I can't do the big puzzle. I do the mini puzzle.
Yeah.
Daily. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Rockwell Museum, a place that I love visiting, and I had a chance to spend some time there a few years ago. And you've got something interesting going on there. Yeah.
At the beginning of the pandemic, they contacted me. The Norman Rockwell Museum was started to showcase Norman Rockwell's work, and they still do that. But they now have, I don't know when they started doing this, work by other people. They had a show of William Steig's work, a show of Roz Chass' work, and they contacted me in the beginning in March, I guess, to see if I would be interested in doing a show with them. So I was thrilled, and so right now you can go online. It's nrn.org/Liza Donnelly, which is my landing page for them, and look at the exhibit digitally. And there's a lot of content there, a lot of great interactive content, and you can actually get their app on your phone and listen to me talk about my cartoon. So they're wonderful. They're wonderful up there. It's in the Berkshires in Stockbridge, the actual museum. It's about an hour north of here. And there's some of my early work when I was a kid. Here's a letter I wrote to Charles Schultz, a fan letter. So it was really interesting to spend the first 3 months of the pandemic going through all my work and trying to figure out what to give the curator. Stephanie Plunkett is the curator.
Talk about that a little bit. Just I'm curious, that letter you wrote to Charles Schultz, how do you have a copy of it? Did you?
I guess I didn't send it.
Oh, you didn't send it. Well, we're glad you didn't send it, because now it's there in an exhibition in a museum. That is awesome.
The other great thing I'm going to mention about the museum is we've been doing a lot of events over the summer, since the museum opened, since the show opened, and digital events. So every Tuesday night, they have a show called Finding Funny in Difficult Times, I think it is. And you can watch it on YouTube, or you can watch it on Zoom. Log in, sign in, and go on Zoom and watch us talk to different cartoonists. So last week it was children's book cartoonists who do children's book, myself included. And next week, Sri, we're going to have a panel on Tuesday with the Norman Rockwell Museum about women cartoonists at the New Yorker. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be me and Roz Chast and Emily Hopkins, Sanders Hopkins, Sarah Lautman, and Victoria Roberts. And we're going to talk about our work and about being women in this business. And then one more thing I want to mention, which is I'm thrilled about. They offered, since I do this live drawing thing every day at 5, they suggested that I go up to the museum and live draw in Rockwell's studio. So I'm going to draw his studio and what it's like to sit in another artist's chair, someone who's long gone. And Rockwell, I was very aware of him growing up. I was not a follower of his, but I was very aware of him. And now I'm a big fan, because I've learned so much about him and about his social responsibility work, his work about social justice, his work about civil rights. And this is me drawing a mural right outside the exhibit. So
I love seeing that. That is really cool. Tell us what you're drawing and when this was. And I see somebody in a mask.
Yeah, this was probably in June, before the show opened. I asked if we could do a mural on the wall, and they said sure. So they gave me this wall, and I drew the drawing in on ink on paper, and they projected it. So what you see is it's not pencil or anything; it's a projection, and I'm just drawing it in acrylic paint.
That is so cool. Rose says, I heard from my son that Liza's show is wonderful. I had seen Roz Chat's show at the Norman Rockwell Museum in the Berkshires. Everyone, if you are out and about, please go there. It's about 2 hours from New York. I presume about 2 hours from Boston as well. Last September, we visited the Norman Rockwell Museum, says Laura, and we arrived just as they were finishing a naturalization ceremony. It was incredibly moving. The children of new citizens were singing, families crowded around, celebrating in gorgeous clothing from their native countries.
That's great.
And museums are often homes to these naturalization ceremonies, and we saw the politicization of one during the RNC. These immigrants were naturalized at the White House. They didn't know they were going to be used as props in the RNC, as we learned, and no surprise that all of that happened. So many more questions coming in and comments. Twyla says, agree with Liza at Rockwell. Carla says, how did Liza bring writing into her work? What does she see as a common point of both?
Interesting question. Thank you. My early cartoons were captionless. I was suspicious of words when I was starting out. I like to do visual humor, visual drawing, visual cartoons. And I don't know. I think it started. I wrote the children's books first, and then I wrote Funny Ladies, which really got me into writing writing about these women cartoonists. It's a history with illustrations, so it got me writing about content. And then I wrote for Forbes magazine for a while, Forbes Online, and I wrote about political issues. I got my voice going with words. So I like to do short essays with cartoons. So if you go to my Medium page, I have a column on medium.com, which is a great platform to read if you're interested in checking that out. So I do a political cartoon, and then I'll maybe write something underneath it, very short, that enhances the cartoon, I hope, or gives more insight into what the drawing is about. So it's they work together in my mind. I like writing. Cartoons. The cartoons I do for the New Yorker have writing now. The captions are not that easy, as many of you who tried the back page caption contest know. It's not. It's a difficult thing, writing the captions. So that's and when you do a cartoon, there's a real dance between the words and the drawing. It's not just an illustrated joke. They have to work seamlessly together. So. Yeah.
Nice. We just have a couple of minutes left with you. Let's see. Let's cycle through the comments. Therese says Liza is so great at moderating discussions with other New Yorker women cartoonists. Can't wait for Tuesday night. So everyone, just go to the Norman Rockwell Museum website, and there you'll be able to catch the. Is there a registration? How do people?
I'm not sure about this Tuesday, but you can go to their events page and you'll see it's called Finding Funny in Difficult Times, and there'll be information there. So you might have to register for the Zoom, but if you don't do that, there's always YouTube. Their YouTube page, Norman Rockwell Museum's YouTube, it will be streaming there, and you can ask questions there as well. So it'll be great. It'll be animated, that's for sure.
And we're seeing comments where people are pointing out your Twitter, your Instagram, your Medium page. You've really adapted to this new world in such a wonderful way. When I lost my job as the chief digital officer of the Met, you and I bonded and commiserated around change and what that means, and adapting to new ways, and the way you draw on your iPad. In fact, it was fun to actually see you draw with ink and ink and a brush earlier, because I'm so used to watching you do things on your iPad. And I know that you worked with Apple, and Apple worked with you on that as well. And so now to see kind of throwback going to the other kind of drawing was unusual, because I associate you so much with someone who is reinvented herself and adjusted to the new world, where a lot of journalists and writers have had hiccups along the way. You've just gone right through and done it beautifully. So we're so proud of you for that. Jonathan says, great show. Always like listening to Liza. And Patricia says, love writing as well, especially poems. And Steve says, are there art forms you enjoy practicing?
I have done painting. I used to draw. I used to paint sort of slightly abstract landscapes when I was out and about in nature. And then I've done abstract paintings. That's it. And I play the piano, and I played the cello for a while. That's about the extent of it.
I love it. Before we come to your final thought, I thought I would spring a surprise on our executive producer, Neil Parekh, and our guest, Fola May, by maybe doing something they do on CNN, where we do a little preview of our guest right after Liza. So let's see if we can just have her wave to us if she's ready. Fola May, Dr. Fola May in LA. So early in the morning, there she is. She's going to wave to you right now and say hello. There she is.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Hi, Liza.
Look forward to listening to your program.
Thank you for sharing your work.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, and Doctor, thank you for getting up so early. Thank you for being with us.
Yes.
Please share with your viewers and followers that you're about to go live. We're just going to have Liza give us her final thought, and then we'll come to you, Dr. May. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Back to Dr. Donnelly over here, Doctor of Cartooning.
Yeah.
Your final thoughts, Liza.
I didn't prepare anything, Sri. Final thoughts. No, I think well, you talk about how crazy this time is, how negative it is. And it's hard to stay positive during this time. That's what I try to do. Lin-Manuel Miranda, who you've met and know, I have not, I haven't had the pleasure, but he once said on Twitter that he recognizes that he's a positive force. That's what he's chosen to be on Twitter, a positive force. And when I read that, I thought, yeah, that's sort of what I try to do. That I try to be upbeat and positive in all the things that I do. That's not to say I'm not hard. I'm like, in this recent election season, I've gotten kind of angry and I'm more harsh with my political cartoons. But that said, I try to be positive on Twitter and Facebook and on my broadcasts and my drawings. So it's because we need as much positivity as we can get right now.
I love that. And I'm so proud of you and proud of knowing you, and you are a force for good in the world. And you remind us that we need to laugh, because otherwise we will cry all day, given all the terrible things going on in the world. Thank you so much, Liza. Have a great Sunday. Thank you for spending it with the morning with us, and looking forward to seeing all your adventures online. Everybody check out the Rockwell Museum and follow her so you can know when she's live every single day, as she does Instagram, Medium, Twitter, Facebook, all of that good stuff. Thanks very much, Liza.
Thanks so much for having me, Sri. You're a great friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And with that, we are now able to bring in Dr. Fola May to talk to us about a very serious topic about what the cancer that Chadwick Boseman survived for 4 years and then passed away from at a very young age at 43. He fought the cancer while doing these incredible roles, including Black Panther, and most people didn't know. So let's welcome on screen here with us Dr. Fola May from LA.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. How's everyone doing?
Thank you. We're at 10 a.m. here. You're at 7 a.m. Are you a morning person?
I am a morning person. I think just by tribute of being a medical doctor, we've had to get up at crazy hours of the day. So I'm pretty used to it. And I also have small children, so that will get you up.
Yes, that will. My first question is always, how are you doing? How's your family through the pandemic?
It's been a tragic year. I think many aspects of this year hurt to the soul. But we've been very fortunate in our family. We've had some tragedy, but we're persevering, and we're trying to remain healthy through the rest of the pandemic. And I've really just used this time to teach as many people as I can about being safe and taking care of patients in the hospital. And that's all we can do, and just pray that things will get better.
And you're certainly doing your part. And when I invited you very short notice last night, you said you will, anything I can do to help others prevent this disease. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit about your work, and then we'll go right into the post you made after Chadwick died.
Absolutely. So I am a gastroenterologist. I focus primarily in colorectal cancer or colon cancer prevention. I work at UCLA Health, and I also work in the Veterans Affairs. So I take care of veterans, but also non-veteran patients. And my research team focuses on how we can improve uptake of screening for colon cancer. Unfortunately, colon cancer is common, and a lot of people don't realize it, but it's the second most common cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States among men and women. We hear a lot about breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer, but I think there's a little bit of a stigma in talking about colon cancer. So I like to remind people how common it is, and that it's impacted most people. Most people know someone or have a family member or a friend of a friend who's been impacted by colon cancer. Our research team at UCLA works primarily in underserved communities, so Black and Brown communities, and we try to spread the word about how common this disease is and how effective screening is. I mentioned how common it is. The one highlight about colon cancer is that it's largely preventable. We'll talk a little bit about Mr. Boseman's case. That's a very unusual and unfortunate case. But for the majority of cases are occurring in people who are age 50 or older, or even in their 60s. And we can prevent most of those cases by having our patients participate in screening. There are many ways to get screened, and it ranges from everything from colonoscopy to doing at-home screening tests. And when you do these tests, you actually can save yourself from developing colon cancer and dying from it.
That is so important for people to understand that it can be prevented. And I just want to have people just see this thread that you put together. Colon cancer impacts us all, even our mighty superheroes. A reminder, no family history, screen at 45 or 50. Family history, screen at 40 or earlier. If symptoms at any age, colonoscopy now. Don't let COVID-19 allow you to delay. Wakanda forever, you said, and a beautiful photo of Chadwick. Rest in power, King, 1976 to 2020. Obviously, it's so sad that he died so young, but I see this as an opportunity for folks like you to tell us and get us to pay attention. I myself, Dr. May, have an internist who is aggressive about these things. So he had me at 40 do a colonoscopy, and I hated it. And I understood why people hate it. And I was inspired in part by, you'll remember that Ct Colonography famously did a colonoscopy live on TV. And I remember that her having done that helped calm me down before I went in and did that. I'm turning 50 this in a month or so. And has the technology changed? It's really important for people, even as I say how bad it was, that we want to encourage people to do it. So what has changed in the 10 years in between the time I took it and basically the procedure didn't hurt at all? It was the prep that was not, there was no pain. It's the discomfort because you have to drink a lot and basically have a completely clean
Absolutely.
A lower part of your body so that camera can go in there. So please talk about that and explain it to us and give us some hope for those of us who are dread now. Now it's been 10 years. I'll have to go back in, I'm sure, soon.
Well, if it's been 10 years, that means that you had a clean colon. So I'm very impressed, and I'm happy that you had some good results. There's a lot to unpack there. So let's start a little bit with the tweet, because I think, a lot of people have been texting me and DMing me what inspired you to send that tweet. And I think for individuals like me who live and breathe colon cancer and who are dealing with it on a daily basis, these facts are obvious to us, that everyone should get screened, that those with a family history are at higher risk. But what I learned immediately after Chadwick Boseman's passing was that the average individual does not know enough about this disease. And despite some of the efforts that have happened in public health to raise awareness and to make people more aware that they can participate in screening to prevent this disease, a lot of people are not participating. So I posted this tweet. I wanted it to be very simple, and I wanted to get down to the bare minimum of what people needed to know right now. I think in this particular tragedy, for someone to be diagnosed with colon cancer at 39 years is extremely rare. And when I heard the news, I was devastated for many reasons, just losing such an incredible talent and icon who's played these historic figures and who has really made me tear watching him play roles as he did as T'Challa in Black Panther. But what struck me about this was, he was diagnosed at 39 years old. That's extremely young. The average age of diagnosis for colon cancer is 66 years old for men.
Wow.
So he was much younger. And I shared this tweet, but I don't know if these recommendations, at least the ones about screening, would have helped someone like Mr. Boseman. He was well below the age of anyone that we would screen, even an individual with family history. So what I like to remind people is the first question is, do you have a family history of colon cancer? And people don't know. Colon cancer has such a stigma that families don't talk about it. And it's too often that families are letting this disease affect them and kill family members without making family members aware. I have patients come in and say, my grandfather died of bowel cancer. And I say, well, was it colon cancer? And they say, we don't talk about it. And that's the number one problem. Because as you mentioned, as you alluded to, there's a 10-year difference during which we start the screening process, depending on your family history. So I try to remind people, you need to talk about this. No one wants to talk about their rectum or poop or bowel movements or their colon. There's such a stigma around that, but talking about it can be life-saving. So the first question, do you have a family history? If you have a family history, so father, mother, brother, sister, you need to start screening at age 40. And you need to participate in that colonoscopy because all of the other screening tests are probably suboptimal for this group. And then if you don't have a family history, we typically will start screening at age 45 or 50, depending on which guideline that you're following. One of the things that we're seeing as a secondary effect of COVID is that people don't want to go to the hospital for any reason. So we've actually seen a huge plummet in participation in colorectal cancer screening. And this is a problem. We, in our health system, have been calling patients and reminding them that they're due for their colonoscopy, and they're saying, I'll wait and come after COVID. We cannot do that. Cancer doesn't wait. Cancer doesn't pause. We have to get these patients in now. So we've identified safe ways to bring patients in for their procedure. In many of our facilities, we do pre-testing of COVID to make sure that we're not bringing in infected individuals, and we try and do the procedure in the safest way possible. Now, you brought up that procedure. No one likes a colonoscopy. And unfortunately, with the technologies we haven't been able to make it a pleasant experience for patients yet. What is a colonoscopy? It's a procedure that involves a gastroenterologist like me. We bring you into a medical center or a surgical center. We use a long, flexible tube. It has a light and a camera at the end. And when you are put to sleep by our anesthesiologist or with conscious sedation, we use that tube to go into your rectum, and with the light and camera, we can visualize the lining of your colon. And we're looking for polyps because colon cancer originates in polyps. So if I'm doing a colonoscopy on a patient and I see a polyp, I take that polyp out, and that dramatically reduces their likelihood of getting colon cancer. That's how the screening works. So it's incredibly important. Because we started screening for colon cancer in the 1990s in the United States, our colon cancer rates have plummeted, have dropped. We've seen much improvements in outcomes of this disease. But unfortunately, yes, patients still need to drink a PrEP, what we call a PrEP, the night before. It's a heavy laxative. It's a not very lovely tasting material. It cleans out your colon, so you completely get the colon cleanse that some people pay for, I will mention. And once your colon is clean, we can actually visualize the walls of the colon very carefully without missing polyps. So that step is important. I think the only advanced that we've seen is that some of them are lower volume now. So before we were giving people gallons and gallons of that laxative to drink. Now we can give you a smaller amount, still quite a bit, but you also need to be on that clear liquid diet the day before, which patients don't like. Bottom line, it can save your life. So I think that discomfort the day before or drinking that laxative is well worth it.
Thank you. I completely endorse everything you're saying. Not that you need my endorsement. You're obviously the professional, but from the patient side, it makes a difference. They went in there, they found some polyps, and nobody wants to have anesthesia, right? And this was, if you think back to 2009 when this happened, this was just after the Michael Jackson encounters with, and how he died with the drug that they used. And my anesthesiologist was making kind of, I guess, anesthesiology humor and said, don't worry, this is the same drug that we used on Michael Jackson, just as I was going under. So it's not what you want to hear. And then as I started to protest, it was already over. I was saying, okay, let's wait. And he said, you're done. So the process took, you don't even know, but it was the rest of it that was the adventure that we had. Rose says, I was screened at 40. Why? First question I was asked by a GI is about family history. No one in my family had colon cancer, but family members had other gastro issues. I hope someday there'll be technology that'll make PrEP easier. And I think we're hearing from Dr. May that they've made it a little bit better, not obviously pleasant, but better than when you and I took it, Rose. Janine said she had her first colonoscopy in her 20s due to family history and some issues. I had a polyp at 26. I'm so grateful that I had the test. Maybe it saved me from cancer. And Dr. Lippy Roy, who has been here on this show and was on our very first of our shows around COVID. She says, agree with Dr. May. Unlike many other cancers, ovarian, pancreatic, and non-cancer illnesses, we have effective screening tools for colorectal cancer. My grandfather died of it. Affects all of us. And I'd like to hear, Doc, are there specific races or groups that are more likely to be affected by this?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say to your guests that mentioned that they've participated in screening, especially those with a family history, thank you for sharing your story. There is nothing more effective than a patient telling another patient that the screening was important and that they did it and that they survived and that they're okay. So continue to share your story. You are empowering others to participate in screening and potentially helping us find and take out more polyps and helping us save lives. Thank you for doing that. And to Libby, thank you very much for your point as well. You know, there are very few cancers that we have effective screening tools for. And the list of cancers that we screen everybody for universally is extremely small. It's really colon cancer. It affects men, it affects women, and we screen everybody. So I really try to remind people that this is one of those cancers that no one is absent from that no one can really ignore the guidelines on. Everyone needs to pay attention. And it's just about finding the age at which you start the screening. Now, I think that your question was, remind me what the last part.
It's okay. We have more questions coming in, so let's keep going. Okay. Carla asks, she's one of our producers, former copy chief of the New York Times. Does your risk of colon cancer rise if you've had another form of cancer?
Oh, I wanted to touch on that. So there are a few conditions that actually do raise your risk for colon cancer, and we screen those people different. So individuals who have inflammatory bowel disease, so that's ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, they don't follow the set of guidelines I spoke about. We screen them more earlier in life, and we actually screen them more frequently. In addition, there are individuals who have had radiation to their abdomen or their pelvis, and those individuals we screen a little bit earlier as well. So there are this is why it's important to talk to your doctor, because your doctor is going to ask you about family history. They're going to ask you about other risk factors. Now, does the risk of colon cancer rise if you've had another form of cancer? So there are genetic syndromes that predispose patients to multiple cancers. And those cancers can increase your risk. But there's really only a few. There's a couple of diseases with polyposis, there's familial polyposis. Those are extremely rare conditions where individuals get multiple cancers in the GI tract. It starts at a very young age, and those families are usually tracked in major medical centers.
Thank you. Susan says, I recently had an abdominal MRI. Would an MRI show polyps in the colon?
Unfortunately not. So there are several tests that we can use for screening for colon cancer. We spoke about colonoscopy, which is one of them. There is the option for a virtual CT colonography, which is a CT scan that is specifically set to image your colon. Now, you still need to take that laxative. So you still need to clean out your bowel the day before, but you don't need to have the invasive procedure. So patients sometimes opt for this. We think it's a good test. We think that it performs relatively well, and it's among the tests that are on option for screening. But if patients are healthy enough to undergo colonoscopy, that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Liza, our guest who is our read-along guest at the New York Times, she says, I've had a few colonoscopies and it's no big deal. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
Patricia
you,
says, my mom found out she had stage 3 colon cancer when she went in for her heart procedure, and she was bleeding internally by the skin of her teeth. She's now good as gold. So there again, the importance of screening, it makes a difference. My mom had no symptoms, so if it wasn't for a heart attack, she would have found out too late because it was found accidentally. And just hearing this is so complicated. Mark says, from an equity standpoint, does colon cancer hit the African American and Latino communities more often?
I want to just quickly mention what Patricia brought up. Thank you for sharing that story as well. That happens quite often. We'll be seeing a patient in the hospital for a heart condition or a lung condition. Sometimes we give them blood thinners to take care of their heart problem, and any cancer or polyp in their colon starts bleeding because we've given them blood thinners for their heart. So that's usually when a specialist like me is called in to see the patient, and we find cancers that way. I do want to talk about, I want to get to Mark's question because that's an area that I feel is very important for us to talk about today. But I want to talk about symptoms because I think especially in the case of Mr. Boseman, which is the motivation for our conversation today, one of the things that we can do in younger populations that are below the age at which we normally would start screening, is highlight the importance of paying attention to any symptoms that might be a sign of colon cancer. So I can't speak specifically about Mr. Boseman's case, but I can speak from the perspective of many patients that I've cared for. Too often, young patients are coming in with blood in the stools, rectal pain, new abdominal pain, pencil-shaped stools, and other symptoms, weight loss, loss of appetite. And we're ignoring them and thinking this patient is too young to develop colon cancer. That can't be what it is. And that's a problem because those patients were deferring getting the colonoscopy that they need. And when we finally find the disease, they are late stage. What I will share is that if I am able to diagnose a patient with colon cancer at stage 1, their chances of survival are 90%. If I am not able to diagnose it to stage 4, that survival drops to 11%. So this is emphasizing the importance of finding colon cancer early. You need to pay attention to your symptoms. If you're having any blood in the stool, if you're having a change in your stool, so either new constipation, a lot of diarrhea, pencil-shaped stools, as I mentioned, weight loss, changes in your appetite, you need to talk to your provider. And that person will try to further understand what's going on, because you might need a colonoscopy. And that's even if you're 39 years old. We're no longer saying this is the disease of 50-year-olds. So I want to say that. And then can I also comment on what Mark mentioned?
Before you do, Doc, yeah. I have to get ready to go. So I'm going to step aside in just a minute, and our friend Neil Parekh is going to take over the interview. Let me just tell everybody, I saw a comment from Sujana Chandrasekhar, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar, our surgeon, who is the co-host with Marina Korean, another surgeon of the show She's on Call, which is going to take place at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to talk more about colon and rectal surgery. Dr. Marsha Harris, booked coincidentally by our producers. She's going to be there, as well as Dr. Monica Gutierrez. She's in rehab medicine. That show's at 11 a.m. Eastern on Facebook and Twitter at She's on Call. Everybody, please tune in for that. I'm going to go produce that show, so I have to step away. I just want to thank Liza Donnelly and thank Dr. Fola May for being with us, especially getting up early and being here and helping people. I am so touched by your generosity of being with us at such short notice. Thank you so much, Dr. May, and thank you for the lives you help save every day. And thank you for giving a shout out to Chadwick Boseman and inspiring so many people in the process. So thank you very much. Here's a shout out to Neil and the entire production team that makes this possible. Dr. May, you know, this is not just another Zoom call. We are actually producing a show here. And here's the team: Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Carla Baranakis, Julia Weeks, and Neil Parekh. And here they are, the producers, and Neil's the executive producer. So with that, I'm going to step aside. We'll see you all next Sunday, where we have a terrific New York Times read-along at 8:30 a.m. And don't forget to join me tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on my social media channels for our daily program. Bye, everybody. And please keep watching and keep learning from Dr. Fola May. She's at Dr. Fola May. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. Appreciate it. And Dr. May, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate you joining us early California time. So thank you for doing that. We did have a few other questions we wanted to get to, and you saw the one from Mark Lee, a friend of ours from North Carolina, talking about health equity.
Yeah,
so I'll just bring that back.
I'd love to hear that one.
Yeah, from an equity standpoint, does colon cancer hit the African American and Latino communities more often?
Thank you very much, Mark, for bringing this up, because I cannot have this show without spending some time talking about this. Colon cancer disproportionately impacts African Americans, and African American men in particular. And for those of us who are interested in health equity and health disparities research, this is a major area of focus. Black men and Black women are more likely to get colon cancer and are more likely to die from colon cancer. So a lot of the public health effort, although focusing on the entire population and trying to get everyone screened, is also focused specifically on African Americans who have higher incidence or higher cases and mortality from colon cancer. There are many reasons why this has happened. Unfortunately, screening participation has been lower among African Americans historically, although that has improved over time. And then there are problems with systemic racism that impact how we care for Blacks in the healthcare system. And that has impacted how African Americans have fared with this disease. Hispanic Americans are also facing a lot of challenges with colon cancer. Our Latino patients that we see are more likely to be diagnosed with late stage disease. And as I mentioned earlier, when you're diagnosed with late stage disease, you unfortunately are less likely to survive this type of cancer. Most of the focus in the Latino community has been specifically on screening. They are among the lowest screening rates in America. So a lot of the work that my team does, or our team here at UCLA does in community health centers, is to help Latino Americans understand the importance of screening and getting these patients screening tests so that we can help improve their survival from colon cancer.
Thank you, Dr. May. Appreciate it. Want to thank Ron for his comment. The show is such an education. I literally rush home every Sunday to listen. Great show as usual. Ron is based in Dubai, so it's evening for him where he's watching from. And we have a comment from Twitter. How can we support helping hourly workers who may lack sick days take a day off for colon cancer screenings, et cetera, and also for people who are uninsured? You raised some really important questions and issues. The incidence rate and the mortality rate for Black men and women rooted in systemic racism. We talked about this. We've talked about this several times on our shows, not just the New York Times read along, but the COVID-19 call that Shri does every day. And we had our guest on our show. We did a special on the 1619 Project. If you remember last year, the New York Times focused on the modern legacy of slavery and healthcare being one of the biggest ones about that. Sonny Slaughter was our guest for that show. So we can't separate when we're talking about colon cancer. We're talking about COVID-19. The health disparities are based in this legacy and this history of racism, and it took 400 years, right, to put that in place to get to where we are. It's not going to change overnight. It's going to take decades, if not longer, to even start chipping away at that. But hopefully, with some awareness, we can get there. Mark, also. Go ahead.
Do you want me? So I agree completely. I'm actually very grateful to your show for highlighting the impact of racism in healthcare and healthcare outcomes. And with all the horrible things that we've dealt with since the beginning of 2020, one upshot is that we are, as a nation, finally focusing on this. And I would say that colleagues that I have never heard have these discussions are engaged. So we still have a lot of work to do. We're not there yet, but we're moving in the right direction. That question about getting uninsured patients or patients who can't take a day off in for screening is exactly an example of how your environment and your work situation can impact your health outcomes. If you live in a socioeconomic status where the only jobs you have don't allow you to take time off, you can't participate in your own healthcare, because healthcare tends to be a Monday to Friday thing, seeing your primary care doctor. For those patients, luckily, there are tests that you can do at home. There are what we call stool kits. They're stool-based colon cancer screening kits that your provider can give you, and it comes with a small tool. You can collect a small amount of your stool and put it in an envelope or in a vial. It's not that gross. And it goes into a laboratory where we can check that sample for small trace amounts of blood, which is a sign of colon cancer. So there are other tests. And then there are some cities that have sponsored free colonoscopy Saturdays and other events to try to get uninsured population in for colonoscopies when necessary.
I'm showing on the screen this article in the New York Times.
Yes.
As of course, we have the obituary, we had the appraisal on the front page. It is unfortunately, I mean, an incident like this, a death like this, which was shocking. It actually came during a live show we did last night, and we shared the news. It leads to hopefully some education. There's probably going to be a bump in calls Monday morning to people calling their doctors and hopefully scheduling colonoscopies. And so the New York Times ran this article, what to know about colon cancer, using Chadwick Boseman's death for some education. Doesn't colon cancer mostly affect older people? And when is screening recommended? All these questions that we've been talking about. Are there racial disparities in the risk of colon cancer? Aaron asked a question earlier that I want to get to, that we were talking about the age at which you should get tested. Sheree talked about getting tested at 40. When we talked last night, I shared my own perspective. Your tweet talks about 40 if there's a family history, 45 or 50. And I said, well, I'm 47. Where do am I 2 years late or 3 years early for my test without a family history?
Absolutely. I can definitely chime in about that. First of all, I want to say that article in the New York Times is an incredible read. I suggest that everyone take a look at that today. It actually quotes Rebecca Siegel, who is an amazing epidemiologist. I woke up, that was my morning reading this morning, and I think they highlighted a lot of important things about this disease and this case. So I would certainly take a look at that article. You asked me that question last night, and it made me think about this a little bit. So in some settings, screening for 45 is recommended. In other settings, 50 is recommended. And that is just because we don't have strong data right now to suggest one over the other. We have very strong data for 50, and that's what we've been doing for a couple decades. And the data for starting screening at 45 is increasing. So there has been a little bit of a shift towards thinking that you should start screening at 45. But we have to remember that the healthcare system in the United States is very complicated. And some insurers are not covering screening at age 45 just yet. So that is why we're kind of in this funny middle space. If you have a provider who is encouraging you at 47 to get screened, and if you don't have to pay out of pocket, or if you don't mind paying out of pocket, I think you should get screened, because you never know what's going to happen in a year or two. You might be dealing with other health problems or other things that are going on in your family, and it might get deprioritized. So if now is the time for you, I say get it done. I say if you're 50 to 52, you certainly need to get it done, because it's that marginal group that has just turned 50. They put it off too long, and we actually see a higher rate in that group. So get it done when you can. I say anytime between 45 and 50, and do the test that works best for you. For many, that will be a colonoscopy, but if that's just not for you, talk to your provider about other options.
Thank you. We had another question, this question from Ellen, looking at the other end, what age should you be screened until? How long should you keep screening?
Certainly, if you're healthy enough to participate in the colonoscopy procedure, we will screen until you are 75. Now, individuals who are even more healthy and who have a long expected life expectancy and who are interested, we can actually screen all the way up to 85. But at around 85, most providers will stop offering screening, just because the risks of the procedure at that point start to increase. At older age, we have more heart and lung problems that make the anesthesia more complicated. So certainly between the ages of 50 and 75, you absolutely should be participating in screening, unless there's a health reason that you cannot.
And I can't remember if we got to this question or not from Susan, that yes. I recently had we did get to that, I believe, right?
Yeah. So I highlighted that CAT scan, a CT colonography, is the one imaging test that is approved for screening.
That's right. Great. And then just looking down, and this is Patricia was making a comment. If we think out of the box, if we can have more availability on weekends for working people who can't get to the doctor, that would certainly be helpful.
I agree completely.
So I want to thank you again for joining us, Dr. May. Really appreciate your time and your insights. Want to remind people if they want more, at 11 o'clock, She's on Call is hosted by Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. And they will be talking about this and other issues related to the medical field. But with that, what I want to do is also make sure folks know about next week's guest. Diane Cardwell is the author of Rockaway, Surfing Headlong into a New Life. She's a former reporter and editor of the New York Times and is an inaugural writer of the Portraits of Grief. Next week, September 6th, will be the last Sunday before the anniversary of September 11. As folks might know, Portraits of Grief was the New York Times effort to do short obits, profiles of people killed in the attacks. She's also covered alternative energy, politics, urban development, and even surfing, focusing on how new priorities, tastes, policies, and technologies change people's lives. Before coming to the Times as an editor at the Sunday Magazine, she was an editor at 7 Days, an award-winning New York weekly that folded in 1990, a founder of Vibe, and an arts and entertainment contributor and editor of several national magazines. She lives, gardens, and surfs in Rockaway Beach, New York. And we certainly want to thank our friend Carla Baranakis for coordinating that and helping us get Diane Cardwell and other great guests. And we also want to make sure that folks know about Carla's newsletter, Local News Tips. It's put out by the Center for Cooperative Media at Montclair State University, and it's the Local Connection newsletter. Each week it offers story ideas and pro tips for journalists. The best of all, it's free. So you can subscribe for this newsletter at bit.ly/local news tips. So thank you, Carla, for all that you do. And again, I also want to thank our sponsors one last time to recognize both Muckrack and Strategy Focus Group for the great work that they do. Muckrack helped with a great course, the fundamentals of social media that Sri was able to put out. And Strategy Focus Group has been a long time sponsor for the last several months. So thank you both to Muckrack and Strategy Focus Group for your support of the New York Times Read Along. Dr. May, bringing you back on for a moment. Any last thoughts before we go?
Thank you. My parting words, I want to emphasize, please don't ignore any symptoms that might be concerning for colon cancer. So these symptoms include blood in the stool, new abdominal pain, changes in how your stool looks, weight loss, abdominal change in your appetite. Too often, people are ignoring these symptoms, especially our young patients. And when we ignore them, the cancers grow and our opportunities to intervene and offer treatments that are effective decreases. So if there's any points to be taken from today, participate in screening at the right age, and at any age and every age, pay attention for those symptoms.
And Dr. May, even though that was the last thought, I do want to honor Patricia's comment on LinkedIn. And if you could speak to this real quickly, she talked about that her mom had to have the test, but there are risks to the procedure, and that she had a friend who passed away during a routine check. And so first, Patricia, our condolences, of course, on that. And Dr. May, can you speak to that as well in terms of the risks?
Yes, there are risks to every medical procedure. For a colonoscopy, the risks are actually quite low. It's less than 1%. However, there are people who have had unfortunate outcomes. There have been several studies that have looked at this, and the benefits far outweigh the risk. But to the individual patient, that is the reality that some people have poor outcomes. And this is why it's important to talk to your doctor, your primary care doctor, and your gastroenterologist. They will risk stratify you. They will make sure that your heart and lungs are in the best shape possible for you to do this test. And if not, they will offer other tests that do not stress your heart and lungs.
Thank you so much. And again, Patricia, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being such a strong part of the New York Times Read Along community. She made a comment earlier that she puts this on her calendar and joins us on a regular basis every Sunday. And that she's also looking forward to next week's guest. So with that, thank you to everyone again for joining us. Thank you, of course, to Shri and to our production team. And again, Dr. May, for joining us on short notice to talk about a very important issue. With that, we'll bring our show to a close and look forward to having you join us next week again for the New York Times Read Along with our guest, Diane Cardwell. Thank you, and see you at 11 o'clock for She's on Call.